With that, I save my money and go on mission trips. Some churches have helped me. It's a struggle. Taxes, I've got also the treasurer. I have all these to take care of, receipts to take care of. I wear multiple hats. I wear more hats than I can possibly wear. With the ability to have some organization and people coming together, maybe there's somebody that could help me with these things, and I just don't know who they are.
Honestly, we've been doing, as you know, Wendy, we've been doing like a storehouse for struggling missions and ministers, and
I think
that includes in Zambia, in the Philippines, in India, in the United States, lots
Bible
of different
Explorations
things.
helps. Bible Explorations helps a lot of people with a lot of money.
So there's this coming together, so we know who each other is. I still have my project in Pakistan that lays 3/4 finished. I don't have the money for that. I've tried, and by God's grace, we've come a long way, but it's not done. And I've been.
This is not to diminish Bible Explorations at all, because
no,
it's and especially what John Vandenberg has done. He's laid the groundwork for some tremendous things to be done. Absolutely. So you can't diminish that in any respect. It's been a tremendous blessing, but yet we've seen systematic benevolence as helping to move forward the work healthfully, and those that were formerly struggling are able to call upon things when they need it, which has been really really good in many respects. And that's what we want. We want to see more mission centers. We want to see definitely more ministries like Bible Explorations raised up with those that have talents, that have blessings, we want to see more of that. We don't want to see less of it. And we want to see even Bible Explorations blessed, not diminished.
There are lots of ministries out there, Christian. Lots of them. Many, many, many ministries.
I stand where I stand on this. So yeah.
I don't know what. We're just one of them. Good morning, Hein.
How are you, Sandy?
Doing
are you
pretty
well?
good.
You guys are so solemn this morning. Come on, it's a joyful time. We're at the feast.
We're ready for Kimber. We're running late.
Yeah, I'm on here.
Okay.
Whenever you're ready.
Go ahead.
Okay. I feel just a little bit awkward in the situation I'm in right now, because I want to share a little bit about a ministry that we've had going in India, and I don't want to be blowing my own horn here or anything like that, but I just wanted to share some of the things that we've been able to do with God's blessing over there, and with the support of various ones around the country. We've been to a lot of different feast groups here and there, and we've shared some of this, and many people have supported it. And I just wanted to share a little bit of what's going on.
I think that's great. That's encouraging.
I don't want to.
It's nice to see things that are happening.
I don't want to detract from whatever anybody else is doing, but I just wanted to share this. So I'm going to go ahead.
We need to hear it. It's witnesses. It's testimonies. We love them.
I'll go ahead and get my screen up here. So here we have a map of India and a few real brief facts about it. 1.4 billion people. That's probably about a fifth of the population of the whole world in that one little country. 1/3 of the U.S. land area. It's only a third as big as the United States, but it has 4 times the population. And the average population through India is 1,075 per square mile. Now that's almost like a city everywhere. Now there's concentrations of population in some of those really big cities where people are so crowded together they hardly have room to lay down. And then there's a lot of open country where they grow their crops, and there's jungles and things like that. But the average is, really high population density. And, India is known as the land of 1,000 gods, or however many gods they have. We really don't know how many they have, but there's, a god for everything. And you have some of the statistics at the top there. 80% Hindu, little over 14% Islam, a real small percentage of Christianity, and then a few other religions here and there. But it kind of gives you a little bit of a picture of the religious situation there. It's a land of intense contrast. I mean, you have beautiful tourist attractions like this, the Taj Mahal. It's a very famous place. And, there's probably millions of tourists that come in there and see this beautiful thing. But just down the street from there, you might find the abject poverty where people will gather any little piece of scrap that they can come up with to make a shelter for themselves, and they can hardly survive. And there it says 21% of the population lives on less than $2 a day, and that's quite well known. We were over there in 2015. I'll just back up here. We were over there in 2005. And at that time, there were people that were being paid just a little over $1 a day. And it was just barely enough to buy food for their family for that day. And so there's poverty everywhere. We were in the state of Andhra Pradesh, the population of 50 million, and there the population density is about 800 per square mile, because there aren't quite as many really huge cities there. But that kind of gives you a little kind of a general picture of what it might be like. We were there in 2005, and we were working with a mission there that there was an orphanage and a small clinic, and then an evangelistic program and a pastor's teaching program. And we got to know one of the main pastors there. His name was Pastor Lazarus. We worked with him a lot. He was our translator, and we got to know him quite well. And we enjoyed our time there. There were some really difficult things that we had to deal with, but it was a very good experience. We learned a lot. We learned what life is really like over there. And then in 2015, our son Sean went over there, and you see him in the middle of the picture here. And you see Pastor Lazarus off to the right, and his wife, Mary Rose, and a bunch of the pastors and other Bible workers that were kind of coming together there for some teaching and education. But one of the main things that Sean went over there to do was he wanted to work with Pastor Lazarus. After we came back from India, we talked to Pastor Lazarus, and we talked to him a little bit about the festivals. And he says, oh yeah, I remember when I was young, my mother told me that they used to observe the festivals, way back in earlier years. And so we thought, well, that's really interesting that they used to observe the festivals, but they don't now. And so we started talking to him about the festivals and kind of coaching him along, and he just thought this was really interesting and really something that was good to learn about. And so when Sean went over there, he worked with Pastor Lazarus and taught him more, helped him understand things. And here we see a picture of the gathering that they had for the Passover in 2015. And Pastor Lazarus is kind of explaining the holy days there. He has the chart. And so he was kind of educating his people, the ones that were in his group of believers there. And they observed the Passover, and they had various gatherings together and learning things. And so Sean was there to kind of help coach them along in that. But he also went over there to create evangelistic videos. he took a camera along and they set up a little studio in the apartment that Sean was living in, and started creating videos of Pastor Lazarus preaching evangelistic sermons. Now, maybe some of you are familiar with the idea of the green screen, and what it is Pastor Lazarus is standing in front of a green screen here, and then Sean would take the videos of Pastor Lazarus and put them into his computer. And because of the green screen back there, the computer can replace whatever is in the background with whatever background you want to put in there. And so Sean did that. This is the background that he could put in behind Pastor Lazarus. And so he had Pastor Lazarus record, I think it was 50 evangelistic messages. And then he put this background with them. And the plan was to put these videos on YouTube because that's a free platform. And so that was kind of the original plan, but it turned out, and I don't even remember the details of how this worked out, but they were able to get these videos on cable TV networks over there in India. And one of the things that we noticed when we were there was that almost everybody has a TV in their house. Even if they live in a grass hut, they probably have a TV. And a lot of them have satellite TV. They have TVs going in the bus stations and the train stations all the time. And so TV communication is really a significant mode of communication over there. So by getting these messages on cable TV, they were able to get them around to some of the bigger cities, bigger population centers, and then people could receive them on cable. Well, then somehow, and again, I don't remember how it happened, just what led up to it, but we had the opportunity of putting those messages on satellite TV, which was just an incredible, almost a miracle of God that we were able to do that. And so this is the logo that we came up with. Actually, Sean kind of designed it, Seventh Day Torah Ministries. And so these evangelistic messages have been going out on satellite TV and on cable TV basically since 2015. And this is one of the, I think this is the network that's on the satellite, Shubha Sandesh. And down below, it gives a little description of that. Shubha Sandesh means good news. It's kind of a Christian network that is going over the satellite. And this satellite covers this area of the world. It kind of centers on India, but it covers all of Southern Asia over into the Middle East. And we learned that a lot of the Arab people, the Saudi Arabians, the Muslims, a lot of them speak some of the same languages that are used in India. And so these messages are covering a pretty wide area there of, population of, I don't know how many billions of people live in that area, but the satellite is covering all those areas. And one of the things that we did was, probably some of you have seen where I did some sanctuary presentations and I dress up as a high priest. Well, my wife Linda made a set of high priest clothes for Pastor Lazarus. And so part of his messages deals with the sanctuary and the gospel that's in the sanctuary. And he also talks about the festivals and he promotes all those things. And so, these are some of the things that are part of the messages that are going out. Well, we originally recorded those messages in the Telugu language, which is the local state language of Andhra Pradesh. But then there was an opportunity to have them translated into Hindi, which is the actual national language of India. And so we were able to take advantage of that. Here you see Pastor Lazarus preaching in Telugu and his translator translating into Hindi. And this was all recorded and put up on the satellite broadcasting. And so the messages are going out in 2 languages over the satellite, which is just an incredible blessing. like I said, I don't remember how God worked that out, but somehow he made that happen. And here's an actual picture of, this is an actual screenshot of Pastor Lazarus preaching on one of the cable networks. And so he's, the message is going out. And you see the logo in the background there. Here's a listing of the cable channels that we're currently on. There's 8 different channels there. And there's, some of the statistics there of how many surrounding villages these cable networks are reaching. There's the main city, and then they branch out into all the little villages around there. And there's, hundreds of villages there. And so the cable TV reaches to all those places. Here's a map showing the different cities that where these cable networks are centered in. And you see the names there, which probably don't mean anything to you, but we're kind of a little familiar with some of them. And anyhow, these are the ones that are currently receiving the messages on cable. And here's just a few shots of some of those cities, just to kind of give you a little bit of a view of the street scenes in those cities. The various ones where the cable networks are being shown. This is one of the big ones. This is Vijayawada, 1.5 million people. And you see the buildings there. A lot of those are apartments. Some of them are businesses, but there's just a tremendous concentration of people in these big cities. And, this is just what it looks like. Kind of the general day-to-day activities in those cities. And here we have the red arrows pointing to those cities again. And Pastor Lazarus is he's planning and hoping to get into some of the other areas that are pointed out with the black arrows there. Those are some of the other districts around there. When we were there, we were actually in the state of East Godavari, which is kind of toward the top there. The city of Kakinada was our big city when we were over there. And but anyhow, this is the area that's being covered by the cable networks. And you see the statistics in the little box there. Total city population of the main cities there, over 3 million in the main cities that are pointed out with the red arrows, and about over 200 villages surrounding them, plus about 2 million more viewers. We have no idea how many can actually connect with these cable networks, but it's quite a few millions. Well, another one of the things that we were able to do in the city where Pastor Lazarus actually lives, he had been a pastor there years back, like 30 years back or something like that. And then he left the conference work. He was actually educated in, let's see, what's the name of the university there? I can't remember the name of it, but it's a well-known Adventist university in India. He was educated there, got his degree in theology there, and then he worked for the conference for like 20 years or something as a pastor and an evangelist. But then he kind of got a little disillusioned with some of the things he saw in the system, and he kind of left the organizational system, and he worked kind of independently. Anyhow, in his own home city, there used to be an Adventist church, but then the conference sold the church, or they closed it or whatever. And so he was there as a pastor trying to work with a group of believers, but he didn't have his own church. And it's kind of a general principle over there among the people that if a religion doesn't have their own church, if they're not big enough or whatever, then it's hard to attract other people to come and listen to the message. And so he was hoping to have a church that could be considered, his own church. And we were finally able to purchase a building for them, for him to use there in his own hometown. This is a picture here. I have a few examples of the kinds of places they will meet for their meetings. Now, this is a church group, meeting in the only facility they have. It's just a little shelter with a thatched roof on it, but that's all they have. That's one kind of meeting place. Here's another type. This is on the roof of one of the houses of the members. They would get together, and many times when we were over there, we would go and speak to groups like this. They would meet in the evening on the rooftop, and we'd have a good group there, but they didn't always even have that. Sometimes they just met in the street, either behind the house or out in the street or whatever. And so that's one of the reasons why Pastor Lazarus wanted a church building, was to have a nice facility and that people would feel comfortable coming there. Another aspect of the Indian culture, you've probably heard of the caste system. Well, Christianity tends to be among the lower caste people, and the upper caste people kind of look down on the lower caste, and they think, Christianity is the religion of the lower caste. And, so the upper caste people don't really want to have anything to do with it, especially if there's no nice facility to meet in. And so you have these kind of cultural barriers there that to make it difficult. And so we finally were able to purchase a church building where they could actually meet, that they could consider their own church. Here's the gate going into it. It's not a very big facility. It's quite small, but it's very nice. It's a really nice building, and they can meet there. They can fit about 30 or 40 people in and around it, out in the courtyard, and they have a PA system so that they can be heard outside. And so this was one of the projects that we were able to carry through with because of donations from various friends of the ministry. We were able to have a church for them. And here you see a picture of the people there. They're having a communion and foot washing. And so this is one of their meeting places. And when they have the various pastors come together, this is where they meet together. Another one of the things that we've been doing is as Pastor Lazarus gets out and around among the other villages there, he's been talking to other pastors of Sunday worship denominations, and he was sharing the Sabbath with them and sharing the festival times and everything. And a lot of them accepted the message, and they became Seventh-day worshipers. And so he's got these churches around with their pastors that he's been working with, and helping them to become Seventh-day Adventists, basically, in addition to learning about the Torah and the festivals and all of that. And so right now, there are about 40 pastors that he's been working with, and he has teaching sessions for them. He brings them together every month to help them, be better educated in Bible things. A lot of those pastors have never been to a Bible college or anything like that. They're just believers. They've studied their Bible. They teach what they've learned just on their own. And so he's helping them to learn more clear doctrine and better ways of explaining things to their congregations. And so it's kind of an educational program. And so we are sending a stipend over there every month for these pastors and these Bible workers to kind of help them with their family expenses. There's a lot of those villages that are quite small, and the pastor might only have 20 or 25 people in his congregation, and they're not very wealthy. They're most of them are lower class. And so here we have our conference, and there's tithe coming in and there's offerings coming in, and so there's a better support system for the pastors. Well, over there, all they have, if they're independent from any conference, all they have is the offering and tithe that comes in from the church members. And a lot of those church members are very poor, so they don't bring much in, and they might bring a little bowl of rice or a bag of lentils or something like that as their tithe or their offering, and that's what supports that pastor. So we're helping to send some support over there so that they have a little better support system for those pastors and their families. Here we have a picture of the pastors in one of their meetings in the church there. Pastor Lazarus is helping them with some doctrinal teaching. And here's a group after one of those meetings. I think there's like 36 or 38 in this group. We're currently working with about 40, I think. And so they come together every month for their educational time, and then they also receive their monthly stipend that we've sent over there for them. And when we were there, we had several baptisms of various groups, and they've had some baptisms since then. We don't really know how many, but we know there's baptisms happening. It's kind of interesting, that picture at the top where you see my wife Linda in the middle there. Let's see here. I don't know if my cursor, this man right here, if you can see my cursor on this man right here, he was the pastor of a church that was fairly close to where we were living. And his mother originally came from Burma, and she was an elderly lady when we were there. We met her. She originally came from Burma, and she personally knew Eric B. Hare. If you've heard of the missionary Eric B. Hare that worked in Burma, she knew him personally. And then she moved to India, and her son became a pastor. But he was actually a pastor of a Sunday church. But when Pastor Lazarus learned about him and he went and talked with him, he became converted to the Sabbath message, and he now has an Adventist, Seventh-day Adventist church there. And this was a baptism of a group that were baptized when we were there. So there's been baptisms. There is a lot of interest in the broadcasts when those messages go out. They go out, at various times of the day. And Pastor Lazarus has his phone number with the logo on the broadcast. And he says many times, right after the broadcast has gone out, he'll start receiving phone calls of people that want prayer for their situations, or they want to learn more about the Bible or whatever. And so there is some response that he has gotten from those broadcasts. Now, here is actually a picture from this year's Passover gathering. You see the big banner up in front there. They always like to have their banners advertising what's going on. And one thing that's interesting about the way they do these meetings, you see the man up in front, he has a microphone in front of him, and they don't set up their speakers just for the group that's there. They have a PA system with big speakers, and you can hear the message for many yards around. I mean, sometimes in those small villages, you can hear the preaching through the whole village. And so that's one way that the message is getting around, just from their gatherings and the preaching that goes on there. So here's one picture of the group. This is another picture of the same group from the front, looking back over the group. This is their Passover and their communion time. I think the man standing in white there is passing out either the bread or the juice to the people. And so they're having, their Passover gathering. So that's just kind of a quick summary of things that we've been able to do with God's leading and his blessing and the support of various other people around us. There's our email address if you have any questions or comments or anything, and our actual mailing address there at the bottom. So Seventh-day Torah Ministries, we're trying to do all we can. It's been expanding a little bit each year. There's a little bit more going on, but each month we're sending funds over there to support the pastors and to keep the cable TV going and the satellite. And there's they've had some hurricanes come through, and people have had hard times with that. And so we've been able to sponsor some food giveaways where they hand out lentils to people or rice or whatever. And those people have had some really difficult times. When we were over there in 2005, if you remember, right at Christmas time in 2004, there was that great big tsunami that happened over there, and it hit the east coast of India where we were. We weren't there right then, but we were there just like about a month afterwards. And the people there took us around to some of the places on the coastline where that tsunami hit. And they said, in a few places, they said there used to be a village here and there was nothing but a bare beach. It just totally wiped everything out. It was just gone. And that's the kind of thing that has happened sometimes. The fishing industry was really messed up. There was a lot of people that were dependent on the income they got from fishing, and somehow it messed things up for them. And they were having a really difficult time because of that. They've had other issues, the COVID situation. They were locked down, they couldn't go out on the street. And so people were basically destitute in their own homes. They couldn't get what they needed in their own homes. And so we were able to help with some of those situations. Anyhow, that's some of the things that we've been able to do over there. And I just wanted to share those things.
Kimber, let me ask you real quick. You have your address and email. Do you have any way to send funds to help you besides like a check?
What we've been doing, we are not a 501c3 organization, and so we're not registered with the government. Basically, all we do, if people want to send funds, just send a check, personal check to me or to Seventh-day Torah Ministries to that address, and we put it in our bank here, and then we transfer it directly through MoneyGram directly over to India, and then Lazarus can pick it up from there. And so that's the way we've been doing it. It's kind of the simplest way we've found to accomplish that.
Okay.
So
And I also wanted to ask you, when you said that they had the speakers and it goes, I've never been over there. My folks, as you know, have, but when they have the little villages or whatever, and they have the speakers out and it goes everywhere, does anybody, like the mayor, I don't know what you call them over there, but the higher ups in the city, do they come and make them be quiet? Or does anybody care that it's annoying them? Or I think it's neat. I know it's a little tiny village, but
we never had that happen. But what has happened is that other people from the just the neighbors, wherever we might be having a meeting, when we were over there, we would have evangelistic series in the various villages, and people that were neighbors to the spot that we were having the meeting would come and listen. They'd stand on the outskirts of the crowd and they would be listening. And it just seems to be a typical thing that whatever's going on, everybody in the village knows about it. When they would have a wedding, they would have music being performed for the wedding, and the whole village would hear the music. It just goes everywhere.
And all that preaching, you just don't know who it's reaching.
Right. And
I know it's in the cable too, but
yeah,
we used to have people on ours that were from ends of the earth I didn't think would even have anything. And, they would email or do something. It's like, wow, how did you even find us? But God has ways of doing it.
Yeah. And like, several of the festival gatherings that they've had, Lazarus said there were Hindus that attended, people that weren't even believers. They'd show up to see what was going on. And I don't know if they could participate, but,
if they have an open heart, God can jump right in there.
And
I think that's neat.
We saw miracles happen. People were healed of AIDS and of cancer and various things like that. And, God, with all the gods they have, if they turn to the Christian God, he's just another one to add to their collection. And so he has to show himself that he is more powerful than their gods and that he actually does something for them. And we saw miracles happen.
No, I think that's neat. I like that kind of stuff, and to help support it and everything else. It's I agree with all that. My folks went over there. I have to tell you a funny story. I've said it before, but my folks would go different places, and they went to Russia. And when they go to a lot of places, they have different languages, so that my dad would have an interpreter. They did for Spanish. Well, this time in Russia, they had somebody up there that was Russian, and they were interpreting it. And the people would laugh. And my dad was just kind of like kept going. He didn't know what it was. found out later the guy was saying his own thing. He didn't even understand what my dad was saying, and he was just making jokes and everything. They were so disappointed. It was like, I can't believe it. But of course, he only did it one time, and they got somebody else that knew what they were doing. But
well, I had that happen sometimes too, when I would be preaching. If Lazarus himself wasn't translating for me, they had, another pastor or somebody else translating. There were times when I could tell that they weren't translating what I was saying.
right.
Because I knew a few of the words. I never did learn the language very well, but I knew a few of the words, and I could think, now that's not what I said. So
Of course, some of that would go to speaking in tongues.
Yeah, I don't know.
Not fire, but I mean, so they understand you in their language. So,
but there was a few issues that we learned about. One of the things was that the Bibles that they have in their language, the ones that are easily available, they can go to a bookstore and pick up a Telugu Bible or whatever. But we found out that the translation that they have was one that was done by one of the early missionaries over there, back in the 1800s. He translated the Bible into their language, but the only ones that were capable of doing the translating were the Hindu priests, because they were the only ones that knew the language well enough to do that. Well, you can imagine some of the concepts that got into that Bible.
I imagine.
We heard about some of that when we would be, teaching or whatever, and they'd say, well, my Bible doesn't say that,
I wonder how many of them translated it and changed their thing away from the Hindu.
Yeah.
Reading it and knowing more.
Hi, Sandy.
Hello.
Are we still going on at 10? At a 9?
At 9?
Or no, it's 10 my time. That's
Yes.
okay. Thanks.
We're just sitting here talking. I think those are, I love that kind of story, and I love to see those over there. And I've had people send me pictures from over there, and they're just so colorful when they have their Passovers and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Villages. But some of them I don't have any way to send them anything because they don't have any. Well, we can send it directly to you now for this, but other ones.
I remember when we was a kid, we used to do harvest ingathering, and we started out, there would be a pickup and everybody would be standing in the back and they'd be singing the Christmas carols. And then we said, when the cassette came out, they would put the music on the cassette, roll the windows down and blast it from the car. And then the towns would want us to register before we could do it.
Yeah.
And then they said, no, you couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah.
So you can see how the stuff is shut down. But I remember the harvest ingathering, you'd bring in more money from the poor part of town than you would from the richer part of town.
Yep.
Yeah.
I remember doing that in Durango a lot, and I really enjoyed it. It was fun.
Yeah,
They don't do that anymore. You had little blue cans, and you knew who you were when you came to the door,
Yeah.
or when you go out and do the food, and then you'd go make the baskets and hand them out. I love that. And
so no, we had to make the church, as kids, they give us hot chocolate afterwards. And so that's one of the things that we loved was the hot chocolate afterwards, because it was cold that time of year.
yes, it was. Yes, it was. That was good. I remember those days. They just don't seem to do that. Some of them do, but unfortunately, some of the churches, they just aren't the same. You don't have the same feeling. It's people don't look the same. They don't act the same. It's just.
But people would hear the music, and they would be waiting out by the road for you.
Yep. They knew.
So it reminds me of what Kimber was doing, with the speakers.
Yep.
Yeah, they make sure that they have a big enough PA that they can really blast it out.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, when I was in Uganda, they would start all the presentations with, they'd have all their singers out there, and they knew that would draw a lot of the crowd in from the village. So that by the time we started our presentations, we had a pretty good crowd, and we had the PA, and it was really nice and loud. And we knew that numerous people were listening. So it was really, thanks for bringing back some good memories, Kimber. Appreciate it.
I just wanted to mention something else. You know, when Christian was talking, he was talking about organization, and he mentioned the term the storehouse. They do have a kind of a centralized treasury, and Christian, I think he has been the treasurer of the storehouse. He has sent funds to us for India, and so that storehouse is doing its intended work. You know, they're sending out funds to various ministries and things like that, and we've been the fortunate recipient of some of that.
And I do believe they call
He
Pakistan.
has that too, and does it, when I hear the right ones, and sometimes I do, but somebody else is helping them. And so I put it somewhere else. I can't, we can't give to all of them, but as needed and stuff, we certainly do. We certainly do that.
Hello, sister. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
I can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. I want to like to share about our mission in Pakistan. We are working in Pakistan from 2020, and as we know that Pakistan is Islamic State, and religious persecution and blasphemy laws always speak in this country. And Christians are always prosecuted due to their faith in this country, and even the Christians are terribly killed by the Muslims and other religious extremist people and religious organizations. So we are working in this country. It is very, very dangerous country to live for the Christians. And we have the children, orphan children, that are living with us, and their parents are also prosecuted and killed in different places. So when these things came to our knowledge, so we bring those children in our house. But when we keep those children in our house, we faced a lot of prosecution when we started to build our orphanage home in Pakistan. So they registered the case against us. So we faced a case in the court for 6 months. Then we relocated our location. We started construction work in other city. So as the work was progressing there and babies are living, so in that time, the religious extremism target my first cousin, and they kidnapped him, and we found his dead body after 2 days. So I lost my cousin in this religion.